This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I've got 9:39. We'll call this meeting of the Killeen-Temple Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Planning Policy Board order at this time, noting that we do have a quorum present. Public comment. We have anyone here that would wish to address the board?
There's 9 individuals online, no questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is staff updates. You're right.
All right, I'm gonna try to figure all this out as we go through it. Clearly, we don't have slides on the wall or on the TV. I think they can see slides online.
But yes,
Everybody should have a handout. I don't know how we're gonna tell everybody that we're switching slides, but we'll just go with it. So staff update, as you can see in your packet and in the slides that were printed, our upcoming board meetings are listed. And those are all here at 9:30 a.m. on those dates, with the exception of the Freight Advisory Committee, which will be held at 2:30 p.m. Additionally, we plan on having a workshop next week, Wednesday next week, or maybe even Monday the following week before the policy board meets again. Everybody will see an invite for that. It'll be for TAC policy board to discuss prioritization of projects for the project call. We'll have final scores for that. We should have final scores from the consultants this Friday compiled, so staff will start drafting the funding scenarios. I probably just stole some of James's thunder for something later on, but my apologies for that. Other staff updates. April is National Distracted Driving Awareness Month. There was a Transportation Commission meeting. The link to that is in your packet. If you'd like to see it, there were 2 I-35 updates at the commission meeting, and then there was a presentation on the 2060 statewide populations. And the last thing I have are the air quality readings, which were 60 and 52 parts per billion. With that, I'm open for any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, right?
Okay, very good, Ryan, thank you for the update. Item number 4 on the agenda is regarding the approval of the minutes from the March 20th, 2024 meeting. That should have been on pages 12 through 14 of your agenda, of your packet. Hearing no comments, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
We've got a motion to approve and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item number 5 on the agenda is a discussion and action item regarding the approval of resolution 2024-05, recognizing May 2024 as National Bike Month. Pages 16 through 17 of your packet. James.
I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do it.
Or you're Ryan.
This is the only other thing I know in the packet to speak intelligently about. May, of course, is National Bike Month in America. This was established in 1965. This is an annual resolution we do bring before the board. It was taken to the TAC for recommended approval at their meeting on the 3rd, and they did take action to recommend approval to the policy board. There are some key dates in the packet and in the first paragraph of the actual resolution itself, defining, National Bike Month is May, Ride a Bike Day, May 13th through 19th, and Bike to Work Week is May 17th, Bike to Work Day is May 17th, and then everything else is standard from the previous years, and this is an action item to recommend, and staff are recommending approval as the TAC did.
Discussion or comments? Hearing none, I would consider a motion to recommend approval of resolution 2024-05. Got a motion to approve?
second that motion.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item number 6 on the agenda is again a discussion and action item regarding approval of the SS4A project application selection list. Should be pages 20 through 25. James.
Thanks, Judge. Dan with Killeen-Temple is back to, he'll give a presentation, a packet presentation, but this item, we, as part of the development of our safety action plan, we did a bunch of data collection and we moved into selecting some projects or identifying projects that are safety beneficial for the region, and Dan and his team are scoped to help provide some additional development of those projects for grant applications. And so that's what this item is for, is to get approval from the policy board, and then next week we'll bring this to the executive committee for their approval, since there is potential funding and work done to get towards it. But Dan will speak some more to how we got there and what the projects are.
Great. Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. So, hey, thanks. So I've got, I guess, a separate packet from the full meeting packet, but I'm going to start with the slide after the title slide. I just want to talk briefly about where we are today, kind of how we got there, along with this project. So at a very high level, we're about halfway, almost halfway through the project right now. So we've done a lot of data analysis. We've met with stakeholders from across the region. We're actually going to be meeting with the last county in the region that we haven't met yet with today. We're going to be going to the city of Lampasas later today, meeting with Lampasas and Lampasas County. And the idea, we've also started our public engagement events. So we've gotten a lot of public feedback, stakeholder feedback, and data analysis to inform some of our recommendations. Now, two of the potential funding opportunities for different safety projects that we wanted to target through this plan development were the SS4A implementation grant track and the Highway Safety Improvement Program off-system grant track, which is administered through TxDOT, that's targeted at off-system roadways. So as part of this project, we were scoped to work with the COG and the member agencies of the COG and the MPO to develop grant application supporting material for up to 6 SS4A implementation grant track projects and up to 10 HSIP off-system or similar grant track, local funding grant track projects. So the purpose of what we wanted to get approval of today was, based on our initial discussions, we've identified essentially an initial project list of projects that we think would be compelling, would make compelling application submittals for either the SS4A implementation grant track or the HSIP grant track. What SS4A implementation grant programs are looking for are generally high numbers of K&A crashes along the corridor of study. FHWA has a list of what's called proven safety countermeasures, so safety elements that could be incorporated into a project application that they've seen effective across the country in other locations, and a relatively high project cost, generally $2.5 million or greater. Also, bonus points are given if the project is within what the USDOT defines as an equity-focused census tract. The HSIP off-system grant program looks a little bit more broadly at not just fatal and serious injury crashes, but also what are called B-injury crashes or minor injury crashes as well. And is generally targeting lower cost projects, so generally in the $200,000 to $2 million construction cost range. So you may notice that we haven't identified all 6 SS4A projects and all 10 HSIP projects on this initial list. And the idea there is we wanted to leave some project development opportunities open in case there were projects that we identified later in this development process to also recommend for development, almost like a second step, which would likely come later this summer. But if you take a look at slide 12, the 4 SS4A implementation project opportunities that we've identified were a corridor of Rancier Avenue and FM 439 in Killeen. That corridor from 2018 to 2022 had 8 fatal crashes and 16 serious injury crashes. The South 31st Street FM 1741 corridor in Temple, that corridor had 2 fatal crashes and 19 serious injury crashes. The US 190 Veterans Memorial Boulevard segment through Harker Heights, Texas, that 2-mile segment had 2 fatal crashes and 6 serious injury crashes. And then in Milam County, the US 79 corridor entering Rockdale, that had in a 2.5-mile span 2 fatal crashes and 8 serious injury crashes. So again, those would be the projects that we think would be good candidates specifically for the implementation grant track for SS4A. We're looking for approval to begin outreach to those project sponsors to make sure that they're interested and engaged, and then start supporting them with grant application development, conceptual project development. Slide 13 lists the 5 HSIP off-system project opportunities that we had identified in this first round. And those include Old Nolanville Road in Nolanville, Texas, which had 3 B crashes along a roadway curve north of Nolan Creek. Sparta Road in Belton, Texas, in Bell County, west of FM 439. That's a road leading up to the Belton Lake Outdoor Recreation Area. That, over that time period, had 1 fatal crash, 5 serious injury crashes, and 2 B or minor injury crashes. Tremere Road in Killeen, that had 7 serious injury crashes and 18 B crashes. Avenue H in Temple, from 31st to 3rd, that had 1 fatal crash, 6 A injury crashes, and 17 B injury crashes. And then 25th Street in Temple, from Avenue M to Adams, that had 3 serious injury crashes and 3 minor crashes. So those were the 5 HSIP, and again, the idea there was that those were all off-system, which is a requirement of that HSIP off-system component. That is not a requirement of the SS4A grant, which is why a lot of those roads were on-system roadways. I would click on the link on the map on the slide, but I don't think that would do much right now, so I'll skip that slide. And then lastly, I wanted to talk on slides 15 and 16 before opening it up for questions. We've also identified opportunities that maybe aren't going to be necessarily HSIP or SS4A program opportunities, but may still be other potential grant opportunities or other what are called demonstration project opportunities, which is another part of the SS4A grant that allows for funding of things or strategies that you might want to test out to see if they're effective before applying more broadly across the region. So in some of the more rural parts of the region, we'd identified one of the big things that we'd heard was a need for better sidewalk and trail connectivity, and we'd identified several opportunities to move that forward through what's called the Transportation Alternatives Grant. That would include South First Street and Temple, but this project may be considered later because the city's already considered a larger project along the corridor there. US 190 through Cameron, and also US 190 through San Saba. And all of those projects would generally be related to building out and improving pedestrian and non-motorized user infrastructure in those cities. And then on slide 16, a couple of demonstration project opportunities. One, we talk about FM 2410 and Harker Heights. That's the intersection right near Harker Heights High School. And what we're already looking into as a demonstration project is implementing what's called a leading pedestrian interval at signalized intersections within a quarter of a mile of a school across the region. We're working to identify locations where we've had past pedestrian crashes, and the purpose of that leading pedestrian interval would be a low-cost just change in signal timings to get pedestrians out into the intersection to establish right-of-way before a vehicle that's making a right turn gets a green light and maybe turns into their path. We've also identified opportunities for potential speed control, speed feedback signs, signal timing updates along SH 195 or SH 201 in Killeen, and then a potential opportunity to do a more detailed corridor study along the length of FM 439 from Killeen all the way to Belton. We've received a lot of comments from stakeholders along that corridor looking at, hey, that's a high-speed corridor. Right now it's a 2-lane road that's got a lot of crashes. It's got a lot of higher speeds, a lot of people using it as a parallel route to I-14. So that may be a good candidate for further study from a safety standpoint, but also from just a general corridor study standpoint. So that was another initial supplemental planning project opportunity that we had identified when talking with stakeholders. So I think, James, if there's questions, I'm happy to answer any questions on any of these project selections or how we got there, or some of the mindset that went into choosing these projects. There should also be a little bit of a write-up explaining them in the packet, but that's the update I wanted to give, and I'll pause now to answer any questions.
So, more of a comment and kind of a question. So, for those that travel these are dangerous roads, right? Usually lots of blind spots or for intersections where you can't really see. And so those are understandable. We had a fatality in the last week or so with somebody on Avenue O, which parallels 14. It's not on here, but it's an old road that used to go straight through, but when they put 190 anyway, it's now bisected by Loop 121. So if you're driving down it, you can actually see the road just keep going. Well, 121 is not clearly marked. There's not like stop signs and big lights and all that stuff that you know it's an intersection. You just, and TxDOT put concrete barriers down. And they didn't put any, there's no reflective mark. It's not like bright orange. It's just concrete barriers. Now, of course, the person I think probably had a little bit too much to drink, but that's probably not death sentence. You know, it's, so anyway, what are we doing? Because I think most, at least what we see in the Temple Belton, where 14 and 35 intersect, is construction is probably the number one. And I don't see anything here around just the event of construction, not the location of a bad road, but the event of construction is probably more than double all of these combined. That's just my non-data analysis perspective. But that nothing here identifies the event of construction and what could be done to decrease fatality.
Maybe that's something we can add to as a demonstration or use some of our additional supplemental funding to fund another plan of action for instances where construction is a concern. You know, I've seen in other states where they use some demonstration dollars in construction areas. You know, you have your dashed white line. Well, they use a dashed orange line so that you clearly know you're in a construction area. Things like that are being done, but it's definitely something we can look into for demonstration, or even if we have additional funds for this grant that we're not going to use.
Because we're within a couple of years of starting some more major construction in and around that area, so.
And then we could, of course, we'd coordinate all those conversations with the policy board, the Waco district, Brownwood district, so everybody's on board.
And Mary, I think one other thing to note is the project list we want to get approval and buy-in on today is so that we can start doing outreach to start scoping out things for subsequent applications. We have already identified probably 3 times this list in projects that are going to make it into the plan as recommendations, but we're unable to scope all those out to full projects for a future application. So I think we've heard a lot about work zone safety in general, and we're also looking into policy recommendations. But as Ryan said, you know, we're scoping out different opportunities for demonstration projects separate from this, and we can certainly add that to the list.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the questions.
I would offer 2 questions. The list that we're considering is it intended for the 2025 funding cycle? Is that the intent of the list that we're considering?
For the SS-GRAY implementation projects on the list, the intent would be to have the plan finalized by January 2025, which would allow those with materials prepared to submit in 2025. That's for SS-GRAY. For HSIP, the hope is to have materials prepared so that they can submit with this upcoming HSIP call in late 2024.
And then with the demonstration project list, is that same funding cycle, or is there the possibility that we can get the demonstration in on the 2024 NOFO?
There's a possibility to get the demonstration in the 2024 NOFO. There are 2 remaining funding or application deadlines for the 2024 NOFO for supplemental planning or demonstration. One will be May 16th, and then the other one, the last chance, is over in August 29th. So, I mean, I think that'll be up to individual agencies or the COG on which of these they want to pursue, and if they want to pursue that this year or next year. But for the demonstration projects, for example, we had a progress call yesterday with the COG, and we prepared write-ups for several different demonstration projects. We did a 439 corridor study, a nighttime driving pilot that will be focused in Milam County tentatively, but could be expanded to other regions. Looking at neighborhood traffic calming best practices throughout the region and building a framework that smaller communities can use to implement neighborhood traffic calming. And then I'm trying to think of what the others are. The leading pedestrian interval study that I mentioned, and then I'm trying to remember that last one. There's one more on that list. There's one more that I can't think of right now. Oh, an avenue for smaller communities to develop their own sidewalk and trail master plans. And that could be done through a supplemental planning activity where whether individual communities wanted to get funding to develop those sidewalk and trail master plans to identify those needs and gaps, or if the COG maybe wanted to have a program where they could serve as an intermediary and help some of those smaller communities develop that. Those are the 5 that we've developed right up for the COG to consider, and happy to, if there are other needs, whether those are work zone safety or other ideas, I think we can certainly look at those. And I would encourage you all to reach out to James and Ryan with some of those ideas, and we can work together if we want to develop anything further.
When you say neighborhood, smaller communities, and then you say neighborhood traffic calming procedures, you didn't say procedures, but whatever word you use, is your hope that those ideas that will come forward as a result of that project, if the project occurs, will be translatable to larger communities for the same neighborhood calming needs?
Yes, so essentially and we're still working out exactly the details of this, right? But the 2 cities within the region right now that have established neighborhood traffic calming programs are the city of Temple and the city of Killeen. So the idea was to look at both of those programs in detail, identify the things that work well about them, also do a best practice research from other programs around the country, and then develop a recommended framework for those other cities that may not have that program in place or may not have the resources to develop and maintain their own program with staffing, just so that it was a common resource that cities could use and could draw from if they wanted to. And then the hope would be to give Temple and Killeen feedback on other practices around it.
Excellent. I have to say, as a city council member, the number 1 topic that I get angry calls about is neighborhood traffic calming needs or perception of needs. And of course, not neighborhood, but larger roads, 5th at 93, 31st at 93, you know, do something, that kind of thing.
Yes, in general, I think the idea with that neighborhood traffic calming pilot would be specific to those local streets.
Okay.
But
Yes, of course.
as you saw, like that 31st Street corridor, that's one of the ones that we're potentially looking at for an SS rate. And I should also say, I think Killeen and Temple were the 2 examples that we found. If there are other cities in the region that have a traffic calming program and we just missed that, please let me know so that we can bring that information in and incorporate that into our best practices. So
We do have an active one in
yes,
Temple,
yeah,
but we have people, staff within Temple that have disagreements about what will calm something, you know, short of putting bodies out in the street. So I'm sure that you run into that all over, but it makes it hard to try to translate for residents when we get calls, what we might or might not be able to do.
yeah, absolutely. And so I think maybe the opportunity with this framework is taking a look at what each city has already, taking a look at what other cities are doing, and then kind of giving options to allow each city to pick and choose what reflects the context of their local.
Good. What works elsewhere, give people ideas.
What could be worth trying, what maybe, oh, here's an option, but I don't know if this will work in this city for this reason. We don't want to be prescriptive to every city and like, hey, here's everything. We kind of more want to, I think the idea behind this demonstration project is, hey, here are a bunch of different options and here are some of the pros and cons of each. Here's where we've seen it work well or not well, and let each city kind of use that information to choose and build a program that works best for them or to tweak an existing program.
And that will also tell cities why you believe things worked well and why you believe things didn't work well in X, Y, Z locations.
Yeah, I think that will be the hope of that, or that supplemental planning activity or demonstration project, depending on what form it takes, is, hey, we're hopefully going to find some cities where something's worked well or something hasn't, maybe get a little bit of input from them or do a little bit of literature research to get some of that
Okay,
information,
thank you.
pass along the best practices to Central Texas.
So I have one more question, not specifically on this project, before they take action. And this is just for my awareness. So we're not the only comprehensive safety action plan Killeen is doing, correct?
That's correct.
have you guys been able to use information you've got from us or use information you've gotten from maybe Metropolitan in Arkansas or something to kind of help see what they're doing to bring to here and vice versa? Is there a cooperative effort? I haven't spoken to the folks at Metropolitan, but I understand that.
Yes, my colleagues in my office are working on that project. We're meeting weekly to kind of share ideas. And I would say that we're also working on, in different offices across Texas, many other projects within Texas. I think once you leave the state of Texas, a lot of the applicability of like how much crossover and lessons learned there are, especially the project recommendations change because each state DOT relationship with local agencies is very different from state to state. But we're sharing best practices in that way. Yes, sir. And the other thing that we're really surprised to see is how consistent we're seeing a lot of the same issues and needs come up. I think a lot of the needs that we've heard here, we're hearing up in the Little Rock region. We're hearing, I'm leading one in Travis County for the outlying areas around the city of Austin. Some of those more rural areas of Travis County, we're hearing some of the same challenges, seeing some of the same things that are popping up in our crash trends analysis. So there's definitely a lot of conversation back and forth, but I think we're also seeing a lot of the same challenges emerge nationwide too. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, for Dan or the staff? Okay, hearing none. Again, the item for discussion and action would be regarding the approval of the SS4A project application selection list.
I'll move to approve it.
You've got a motion to approve the list
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion on item number 6? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item number 7 on the agenda is a discussion item regarding the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the MTP fiscal constraints. That can be found on pages 28 and 34 of your packet. And I'm going to turn this over to James.
Thanks, Judge. So one of the requirements of our MTP is that it must be fiscally constrained, both short range and long range. For the short range funding, which is the first 10 years, we use the UTP estimates. And those are in your packet on page 29. They are draft as of January 31st. I think there'll be some final numbers coming out this summer, but that's what we use for our TIP funding and also those first 10 years of our MTP project listing. For the second 15 years, which also in our project listing need to be financially constrained, there is a model that the Texas Transportation Institute has developed called Trends that forecasts revenues and expenses. And this is pages 30, 31, and 32 of your packet. And there's some kind of basic inputs, population growth rate, fuel efficiency, new capacity, and then some advanced inputs that users can tweak as they like. And so the outputs from that model, they kind of give you different scenarios, and whichever one we pick, that's what we will use to financially constrain the second half, the outer 15 years of our MTP project listing. You can see that air listing, it's everything after that amount is considered unfunded, but richly significant. The TAC discussed this 2 weeks ago. They did recommend, they wanted more time to discuss, so they recommended tabling. They had some questions. They'll be discussing again May 1st. So this item will be brought back for approval of a scenario for the trends, and also recommending approval of using the UTP estimates or final numbers for our fiscally constrained our MTP. But we wanted to share this with the policy board just for discussion. And is there anything I'm missing? Was there if staff were recommending a scenario for trends, was there one that we had recommended?
We had discussed the default scenario for TAC.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so the default, and I guess on page 31, that first column, those inputs, I don't think we we did anything different with the advanced inputs, but those 3 basic inputs are what is gonna pop out the different scenarios. And so on page 30, the actual numbers on page 32 is that first kind of block. Those would be the estimates. There was a question from Victor about category 2 funding that seemed low. We're working on getting an answer for that. We don't have one yet, but yeah, any questions for staff on fiscal constraints and work on the model? We can answer this again or get some answers.
Another great update, James. Thank you. Just answer all the questions before they're even asked. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. No, is there any other discussion, anything the board needs to hear concerning item number 7? Okay, if not, we will move on to item number 8, which again is a discussion item regarding an update on the KTMPO 2050 MPP development. And again, that should have been on page 38 in your packet. I'm sorry, 36 in your packet.
Yeah, thanks, Judge. And if you're following along in the presentation, it's slide 24, I believe. Ryan did steal my thunder a little earlier. I don't have much to add. For the project development side of things, we are anticipating final scores this Friday, and we'll be sending out as soon as we can next week those draft funding scenarios. We'll be sending out a calendar invite to the TAC and then policy board also for Wednesday next week to kind of discuss those. And then as far as the narrative portion of the MTP, staff are working on rewriting chapters 2, which is the MTP development and the goals, vision, objectives. And then Daryl and some of his team from Hill Country are helping with the transit chapter because it's very outdated. It needs a big refresh, especially with all the work that they're doing with microtransit and new initiatives. So those 2 chapters will have the biggest changes. We'll have draft versions available for review in May at the TAC and Policy Board meeting. And then in June, we'll have a full draft MTP for review, and hopefully we'll have approved funding scenarios by then. So it'll include an updated project list and all of that. And then public involvement will start after that. That's the schedule update I have for the MTP.
Thank you, James. Questions, comments, concerns from the board? James? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 9 on the agenda. Again, the discussion item regarding an update on the Safer Streets and Roads for All SS4A grant. Should have been on page 38 in your packet. And I believe that would be slide 25 in the handout. So, James.
Yeah. Again, Dan covered most of the big things for SS4A updates. We do have some public engagement meetings, second round coming up over the next 2 months throughout the region. And we've met with almost all the counties now. In your packet, there is a little in-kind tracker for how much the total spent, the match requirement today, and the in-kind received. We're doing really well, as you can see. So we're on track to fully cover the 20% match with in-kind funding. There is a social media campaign open right now to get more comments. It'll be open through July 31st. I know Anita has been working hard at getting the word out and working with all the whole region to get them to share that. So anything you want to add to Anita on social media engagement?
No, we've been collaborating with Dan's group, and they're just doing a great job of leading that project and communication. So kudos to them.
Yeah.
A big response, actually. So we've been tracking it. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we've already.
We'll share an update with some numbers, but there has been a noticeable uptick in comments received and views since we started this push at the beginning of April for the region. So it's been good.
I've got the numbers if you want to from this Monday.
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
Can you find that? 5 seconds. So we've got now 111 map comments, 81 survey responses, and those comments and responses are from 95 unique stakeholders. In general, 513 unique people have visited the website since it opened up back late last year.
Thanks, Dan. That's all I have for accessory.
Very good. James, any questions, comments, or concerns from the board considering the SS4 grant? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 10 on the agenda. Again, a discussion item regarding public input received through March of 2024.
We have no new comments received. Accessory comments, but no general comments to share in March.
Very good. Comments, questions, concerns from the board? Hearing none, brings us to item number 11, member comments. Comments from the board?
So I have two things I wanted to bring to the policy board attention. One, we've been working on this schematic planning for the I-35 I-14 extension through the area. There's been opportunities, our public involvement opportunities are coming up between now and the summer. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up about those invitations and advertising those will be going out. And as this corridor progresses to the east, not so good news on our Rogers bypass project. Unfortunately, our contractor's in default right now. So that's going to put us in a quandary to get that job finished. We're going to concentrate on keeping the areas that are tying into the existing 190. Obviously, the rest of it's out in the greenfield project where our contractor is defaulted. And talking to a lot of lawyers and bonding companies in the next couple of months to try to get that project back on track. So that's not the greatest news going on. If you hear rumors flying around, it's not a rumor, it's fact.
Stan, what does that do to the extension of the timeline of the project? I'm just curious.
So to be honest with you, it's quite long. There's still about $25 million worth of work to be done up there. Right now, we have identified 3 different options that we would normally go through with the bonding company to pick up the responsibility for that. And depending on which of those 3 paths gets chosen, it's kind of a negotiation between us and the bonding company to decide which way to go to kind of dictate the timeline. But it's not a fast process. So TxDOT we're spending a lot of money already on the existing roadway where we have travel going on right now, but the stuff in between is going to kind of have to settle down for a while. You won't see much activity out there except maintaining the existing roadway.
And then if people do have issues, they still need to just contact you or Mike.
Absolutely. Michael Gates is there. This is not a, kind of been suspecting this is going to happen for a while, doing everything we could to not let it happen, but it did happen. So it's unfortunate, but we'll do the best we can. And we'll keep you up to date as.
Stan, how long has that job been down?
Well, we just defaulted them last Friday.
Okay.
So they've been working it, so they kind of mobilized last week. So they've had skeleton crews up there at best. Company was struggling and they're living on 4-year-old bid prices. And a lot of their price guarantees from subcontractors and stuff have expired. It's just a financial hole that they can't meet. So it's going to look a lot. So it's just really.
Thank you for that update.
But not the second part, but, you know. Thank you, Judge.
I think there was one more thing in reference to the meetings for I-35. Correct me if I'm wrong, Victor, but there are meetings today for the elected officials at the Harris Community Center.
Yes.
Correct? For those.
That's for the That's an area that's affected by the portion where I-35 and I-14 are going to run concurrently, basically. So they received invites for that.
Okay, so
I have a copy of the email that Victor sent out, if anybody wants to read it, I just brought it with me.
Okay, any other member comments? Hearing none, I've got 10:19, and that concludes the business of the Transportation Quality Board. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.